inviting me to speak on this. Nigerian Young Academy is dear to my heart. As has been mentioned, I'm a fellow of the Academy. So today I want to look at skills in writing research proposals. One of the things that most aspiring researchers find difficult, writing publications is not so much of a difficulty for many academics, but when it comes to writing proposals, it can be a bit tricky. I remember that I wrote my first proposal after 6 years of having a PhD, and that's to show you that there can be a gap. And if you really want to do good research, then you really must focus on writing proposals, because that's where you get the funding and that's where you can have the money to do the kind of research that you want to do. So I want to quickly look at what I'm looking at this from a personal point of view and as well as a professional point of view, what I have experienced. And I think that it can help people who want to write proposals. For me, one of the key things in starting the thoughts, the idea of writing a proposal is identifying the research problem. And that is tricky because you have to identify a problem that is novel, that is innovative. Now, innovative novel doesn't mean discovering new things. It could be discovering better ways of doing something old. And it has to be interesting and be able to catch the interest of the funding agency. Another thing people avoid, maybe because they don't want their ideas to be stolen, is that they don't talk to other people. And this is a big mistake, because brainstorming your ideas with colleagues and mentors is incredibly important. As smart as people are, when two heads come together, they make better decisions. And so brainstorming is a very key issue. And then to understand what you're going to present, they need to do an in-depth literature review. This helps you to solve the first problem, which is the research problem, because you don't want to do something that other people have done before. It will not attract the interest of those who are funding. Remember that these are people who are in the business of funding research, so they know a lot about this. And so do very in-depth literature search and then identify the gaps. And these gaps are what you aim to fill. Then find collaborators. Some people give up when they think they don't have a set of skill set to solve a problem, and so they think they can't do it. But if you find collaborators who can do this, and those you can depend on, you can trust, then you can bring them into the research proposal and strengthen it. And then seek advice from researchers who are in that area of interest, especially if you're delving into proposal writing for the very first time. Seek advice from people who are in that field, and you'll be surprised that such people could become potential collaborators with you. And then another thing is to review, especially if you are applying to a specific funding agency, review previously funded research. And when you have done all of this, develop a novel idea. For most proposal, it starts with a concept note or a concept letter, a concept paper, depending on how it's put. And this concept paper is usually unsolicited. In other words, there's an open call. On very few occasions, some funders, especially when you have developed a very good track record, will specifically write to you. That's not very common. But most people, most funding agencies will leave their call open because they want it to be very competitive. And so proposals in the first instance, are difficult to write, and they are usually lengthy. And so many organizations don't want to read very lengthy proposals. And so they usually start with a concept note, which is a summary of what the research questions, your objectives, and how you hope to achieve those research questions. And it is after they have written this concept note, they scrutinize it and streamline it to those who suit their purpose. That is the funding agency. That is when you are asked to write the full proposal. And for the full proposal, there's usually a lot of documentation. And so you have to start on time. And so you collate the document, you finalize the proposal, and you submit. And of course, wait for a response. If you are successful, congratulations, implement the project. If you are rejected, make inquiries and try again. So to me, in my own experience, what are the things that I can say are the most important things with respect to being able to sail through positively in a grant? I think number one for me is identifying an important idea or research question. If you want to rehash what others have done over and over again, it is very unlikely that you will be funded. So you must have a new idea or a new way of doing things. And like I said before, you get these ideas from a detailed literature search. Another key aspect of writing proposals is that you must provide evidence that you or someone in your team can carry out this project. That is, you must show track record. Why is this important? Remember that a granting body is giving you money to carry out a project, which is in their interest usually. And so they want to make sure that you are capable of dispensing that activity, because nobody wants to put in money where they know there will be no return on investment. So you have to show track record. This is a bit tricky for people who are new into grant writing, but it's not impossible to sum out. What you do if you are new to grant writing is that you get someone on your team who has track record. That will help boost your proposal. And then the last thing, and another major mistake a lot of people make, is they think that the bigger the words, the more jargons they use, the better their proposals will be. Actually, the reverse is the case. Most of the time, people want to read a succinct and clear proposals. They don't want ambiguity. They don't want heavy languages, complicated language. They want something simple, very simple. Remember that most proposals at the very early stage of review are reviewed by sometimes non-scientists if you are writing a scientific paper. So if you're going to be using ambiguous words, a lot of jargons, it can be off-putting. So it is better to make it clear and succinct, as simple as possible. Then how do you identify the bodies that can fund your research? For people who are new to grants writing, I usually recommend that you start with institutional granting bodies. For example, in Nigeria, we have the TED Fund Institutional Based Research Grant. Start with something small. Start building that track record. And then do some fellowships. Do some small grants like the IFS grants and the rest. And then start moving into national, regional grants like the FLAG grants and the rest. And then before you move to the international scene. Some people are lucky. They go straight to the international scene and that's fine. But I think that it is good for us to, especially for those who are starting out, start with something small. It helps you build track record so that when you are applying for a higher level of grant, there is the evidence that you have done something similar and you have executed that grant appropriately. I just want to give my last word because I'm aware this is a 1-hour program. Yes. So my last word for you is this: find a mentor. I can tell you that I mentioned that the first time I wrote a proposal was 6 years after I had my PhD. And I still would not have written that if I had not had a mentor. Mentors have a way of seeing what you yourself cannot see. And a good mentor has a way of pushing you to that potential, to achieving that potential that you have. The second thing is never give up. If your proposal is rejected, don't give up. Find out why it's rejected and learn from it, and then write again. You continue to write until you get a proposal. There's this saying we have here in my group at the University of Benin. But if you ask, you may receive. And so keep asking, keep putting in the effort. Eventually you will get a grant. And that's the truth. You will get it if you keep at it and you don't give up. And another major advice, if you do get a grant, please do not mess it up. The granting word is a very small word. Word gets around. If you mess up a grant, it is not likely you will ever get another one again. So I thank you very much for listening.